Does unrestricted immigration, legal or illegal, constitute an invasion within the meaning of the Constitution? And what, if anything, may a state do about it on its own? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. America has never seen anything like the busing campaigns by the governors of Texas, Florida, and to a lesser extent, Arizona. The states along the Texas-Mexican border have a problem. Well, California and New Mexico have the same problem, but their governors don't see it as a problem. The problem is illegal immigration and the refusal of the current administration to do anything about it. Not that it is beyond their campaign last year to airlift the immigrants involved to states that Trump carried. So Governors Greg Abbott of Texas, Ron DeSantis of Florida, and Doug Ducey of Arizona, Republicans all, are now busing the illegal immigrants in their states to liberal jurisdictions. They sought to dramatize the hypocrisy of the American political left, and they are doing a first-rate job of that. But now they're drawing conservative criticism on the theory that they are accomplishing a Democratic Party objective. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about what one governor candidate says they ought to do instead. Before I address that criticism, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. Be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of good merchandise there, especially this t-shirt I have chosen for today, which depicts Klaus Schwab saying, "We have ways." Translation, we have ways. I have to mention him because he is in the background, and no mistake. One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, do you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep those videos coming, click that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do. Pardon me, please. All right. Immigration law is a political football in America more than has ever been the case before. President Donald J. Trump ordered the Remain in Mexico policy, and that slowed illegal immigration as never before. But the president, Biden, reversed that policy. The state of Texas sued to block the reversal, but the Supreme Court said the president can reverse a predecessor's policies if he wants. Biden versus Texas, docket number 21-954, 2022. And I've left a link in the description to the Supreme Court's syllabus on that case. Governor Abbott's first response to that decision was to order the Texas National Guard and Texas Department of Public Safety to return illegal immigrants in his state to a port of entry along the border. Both the president and the president of Mexico condemned that act. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador then said something incredible. Quote, "If there's a candidate from a party that mistreats immigrants and Mexicans, we're going to ask our countrymen there that they don't vote for that candidate or party." Unquote, El Presidente Obrador. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot! Since when does the head of state of a source country for migration tell his countrymen how to vote in elections in the host country? The only people who ought to vote in American elections are American citizens. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre specifically said Governor Abbott had exceeded his authority. Quote, "Immigration enforcement is a federal authority, and states should not be meddling in that. That is just, especially Texas Governor Abbott, who has a track record of causing chaos and confusion at the border." Unquote, Karine Jean-Pierre. Now, do not think for one picosecond that I concede anything from her. I concede anything she says, or her evaluation of Governor Abbott. I mention her statement only only to reflect her attitude and that of her boss, and also to condemn it. Now, where that Texas order stands, I can't tell. If any of you hearing this know where that order stands, whether it's still in force or whether some federal judge has enjoined it and it's in the hands of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, leave a comment. But I'll tell you one other ground for confusion. In April 2022, 3 months earlier, Governor Abbott first started busing immigrants to Washington, D.C. That according to KDFW TV, Channel 4, Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. She actually, Governor DeSantis followed Texas' example and not the other way around. Abbott's targets have included Washington, D.C., New York City, Chicago, and the official residence of the vice president. So Governor DeSantis started busing immigrants out of his state too. Florida Politics tells that story. First, he transported immigrants to Delaware, Joe Biden's home state, more recently. And spectacularly, he airlifted 49 immigrants to Martha's Vineyard. The response was less than ecstatic. Scott Brown, former U.S. ambassador to New Zealand, put the matter into brutal perspective yesterday afternoon. Here's what he said, quote, "If Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' intent was elevating the broader immigration challenge in this country, mission accomplished. Bonus points for spotlighting the not in my backyard hypocrisy among the glitterati," unquote, Ambassador Brown. And I certainly agree that Governor DeSantis nailed those guys to the wall, dead to rights. Well, within 48 hours, the Massachusetts National Guard removed those migrants from Martha's Vineyard. They went to Joint Base Cape Cod on the mainland, where they'll go from there, no one will say. Governor Ducey bused several immigrants to Washington, D.C. as well, back in May. His busing program has received scant attention since then. He is not re-eligible. That is, he may not seek re-election. Kari Lake has the Republican nomination for governor in this midterms. And she has already promised to handle things differently from how Doug Ducey is handling them. Now, the obvious question arises, can a governor directly send people back? Let's look at some of the logistical problems first. Governor DeSantis has an immigration problem that Abbott does not have, and a Governor Lake would not have either. He has no land or even river border with Mexico. Illegal immigrants come to his state over water, over land from other states, or by air. So all he could do is airlift those immigrants back to Mexico City or maybe to Havana. And Laura Loomer thinks maybe he should. She drops hints of that on her Telegram channel, and I have a link in the description to that channel. Whereas Texas and Arizona both have ports of entry and breaches in the wall. Governor Abbott has pledged to close the breaches in the wall, which the put resident left by ordering contractors to down tools and go home. The confusing part is this. Now, why didn't Governor Abbott stop busing immigrants to other states and continue busing them back to ports of entry? Now, Kari Lake isn't fooling around. What's Going On News quoted her as saying in an interview, they didn't say with whom, quote, "I think it's kind of cute that they're sending these buses around the country, but let's face it, when we send a busload of illegal aliens into Washington, D.C., they're still our problem. We're going to send them back across the border. We're going to give them safe passage back across the border. But they're not staying in Arizona, and we're not going to allow them to be shipped to the other states either," unquote, Kari Lake. But that's not the first interview she gave, or at least I don't think it is. Back in January, she gave an interview with the Gateway Pundit and set forth the most comprehensive rationale for a governor's authority on immigration. I have left a link in the description to the text of the original Constitution. Article 1, Section 10 forbids the states to do a number of things. The relevant clause in this section is Clause 3. Let's call it the State War-Making Clause. It reads, no state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. Now, without question, a state may marshal its own military resources to repel an invasion of its territory from outside. After that, the question of what a state may do without the consent of Congress gets tricky. Does illegal immigration constitute an invasion? After all, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4 gives Congress the power to set rules of naturalization for the whole country. Beyond that, may states enter into agreements or compacts in time of invasion or imminent danger? One thing should interest any student of the Constitution, namely, Congress has already consented to having every state keep troops in time of peace. We call this consent the National Guard. In addition, Texas has a state guard, and Congress has never made an issue about that. Before I get into the details of Kari Lake's proposal, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You're not alone. The fluctuating economy, employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Whether you just want to collect the rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities that company provides, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlives.com to learn how you can build a legacy for your future. So, what did Kari Lake propose? She proposed, back in January, to test, more directly than ever before, the powers of a state governor. Ironically, if like-minded people capture Congress in this midterms, Congress can consent to everything she proposes. They can even consent in near perpetuity if they can pass an act directly conferring the authority that she would assert. But absent a Congress willing to pass such a consenting law or even a joint resolution, a Governor Lake will land in federal court, and the case would without a doubt go to the Supreme Court. She proposes to declare illegal immigration, to the extent we now see, an invasion. The invasion consists not only of uninvited guests, but also of illegal drugs. For that reason, she will establish an interstate compact, which any state may join to share resources and intelligence. Here's what she said about that to the Gateway Pundit. Quote, "We'll let the federal government know what's going on, but we're not going to wait for their approval. They have dropped the ball. It's a dereliction of duty. Article 4, Section 4 requires that they protect us from invasion, and they're not doing that, and there's a remedy in the U.S. Constitution." Unquote, Kari Lake. That remedy is Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3. In addition to the compact, she would task the Arizona National Guard with sending immigrants back across the border, which is exactly what Governor Abbott seemed to be doing on July 8th of this year. On her campaign site, she keeps a page setting forth the full particulars of what she plans. I've left a link to it in the description. And remember, she campaigned on this very plan in the Arizona primary, which she won handily. I am not a lawyer, But I can only speculate on the kind of lawsuit Governor Lake might face, of course. But in the interest of assisting the people of Arizona, Texas, Florida, Pennsylvania, and any other state with active governor's races, I will give the matter my best shot. First, any party to any interstate compact would declare itself under actual invasion as part of joining it. That would inextricably intertwine the questions of declaring an invasion and forming a compact in response to it. Again, is an interstate compact a legitimate response to an actual invasion? Not a court in the land has ever tested that. In fact, a territorial invasion of the United States through a state with a mass army has never happened. Even the attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, happened when Hawaii was a territory, not a state. So, the courts would first have to answer whether unrestricted immigration, nominally contrary to the federal rules of naturalization, constitutes an invasion. True, Governor Lake has refined the declaration she proposes. She will cite the importation of narcotics and other dangerous drugs and human trafficking. But the central issue remains. If Congress does not secure the border, then has Congress laid America open to invasion? And does the mere flow of migrants constitute that invasion? Or does invasion connote a conventional mass army, naval bombardment, aerial attack and bombardment, and similar mass military acts only? Second, what may a state do in response to an invasion? Sadly, you can read the state war-making clause two ways. By one way, the only thing a state may do if actually invaded or in imminent danger is to engage in war. Does transporting illegal immigrants back to the border constitute engaging in war within that meaning? Well, probably it would, once a court equated illegal immigration in the face of lax enforcement of federal law with invasion. The other way to read it is that states may enter into agreements and compacts or even lay duties of tonnage to support its efforts to repel an invasion. Now again, Congress has already consented to the keeping of troops and even ships of war in time of peace. To find in favor of any such compact and its members, a court would have to find that the purpose of the compact is to repel the invasion and nothing more. So a Governor Lake would have to make sure that this compact did not suffer from mission creep. Ironically, Governor Abbott signed his executive order to transport people back to Mexico while still carrying out his plan to send those people to Washington, New York, Chicago, and the vice presidential residence. So Governor Abbott needs to do one or the other, not both. Now, Governor DeSantis, as I said before, has his own unique problem. How does he remove illegal immigrants from his state? Does he bus them to Texas to hand them over to the Texas National and State Guards? If he joins the Lake Compact, he can. If he can get the consent of the governors of Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. The governors of Alabama and Mississippi might possibly be willing to consent to Florida National Guard convoys rolling through their states along Interstate Highway 10. But Governor John Bell Edwards, Democrat of Louisiana, most probably would not. And he won't be up for re-election until November of 2024. So that leaves airlifting his immigrants under Florida Air National Guard fighter escort to Mexico City. Now, if the planes or their escorts lack the range, the Texas Air National Guard might let them land and refuel. Well, what happens next? Will the Mexican Air Force scramble to intercept such flights? Given the expressed attitude of the President of Mexico, they may. And Governor DeSantis could possibly airlift his immigrants to Texas for handover to the Texas National and State Guards. The only other thing any of these governors can do is build their own prisons for illegal immigrants. They would then detain such people and demand that Mexico send a plane to take them back. But again, given the attitude of the president of Mexico, they would not. Now, the federal government has its own problem. Should they decide to sue or prosecute a no state shall violation? Doesn't the Constitution command the federal government to protect all states from invasion? What should a court think of a government that has laws defining illegal immigration but refuses to enforce them? Or shall the federal government actually argue that the Constitution guarantees to every human being anywhere in the world the absolute right to enter the United States? The current Congress, or at least the House of Representatives, might be in a mood to argue precisely that. The House Committee on the Judiciary reported favorably, along party lines, a bill to let non-citizens vote in federal elections. But that's the current Congress. Midterms give an opportunity to elect a Congress that could consent directly to everything Kari Lake proposes. The next question would be, can the president override such a consent of Congress? Must Congress express its consent by law, which requires presidential assent per Article 1, Section 7? Or may Congress express that consent by joint resolution, which does not admit of presidential assent or interference? So a Lake Compact might still land in the courts on the theory that Congress may consent only by law. Now, Congress might obviate that obstacle by removing President Biden and Vice President Harris on impeachment for and conviction of failure to repel an invasion. But that requires 2/3 of the Senate. Now, we can safely ignore the criticism of Governors Abbott, DeSantis, and Ducey from the left. After all, the left wants to replace patriotic Americans with international migrants who would then vote yes on a plebiscite to dissolve the United States and accept the Great Reset by the World Economic Forum. Listen to me carefully. If any of you doubts that this is the intent of the Democratic Party immigration policy, leave a comment. And if Klaus Schwab or any of the other denizens of Davos or any representative of same think I have misrepresented the intent or the effect of the Great Reset, I invite them to leave comments too. So, any criticism the left makes is self-serving. And any criticism that blue city mayors, including the mayor of Edgartown or Martha's Vineyard, make, reveals their own hypocrisy. But conservative critics have a point. Laura Loomer and CNAV's own contributor Bradlee Dean insist that busing immigrants anywhere achieves the objectives of the Patriot replacers. Both Loomer and Dean say flatly that those governors should not send those immigrants anywhere except back where they came from. Anything else constitutes facilitation of the enemy's plans, or even something as blameworthy as directly importing illegal aliens. I have a link in the description to Bradlee Dean's article saying precisely that, and my initial objection to his use of the verb to import. And my contention then that neither he nor Loomer nor anyone else had shown me that governors had unilateral authority just to send them back. But while they might not have made such a showing, Kari Lake did. Her answer, yes. And she ran on that answer and got the nomination. If she follows through with her plan, we might see a direct test of either a state's authority to deport immigrants directly, either unilaterally or in concert with other states, or the Congress authority to consent to letting states take illegal immigration into their own hands, whether a president likes it or not. The left accuses state governors of carrying out publicity stunts. Let's see them deal with a state governor who goes further. And to Bradlee Dean and Laura Loomer, I say, let's see a comment from you and Kari Lake, and also from any constitutional lawyer. Link in the description to the article, to the syllabus on the case of Biden versus Texas, to the Constitution, to Kari Lake's border policy proposal, to Laura Loomer's Telegram channel, to Bradlee Dean's article, excoriating Governors Abbott and DeSantis and asking them in so many words, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, they don't just send them back. And to conservative news and views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to oursilverlines.com, as I also mentioned. You know already how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. And on the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link and links to anything else I can find that I've left said on immigration or anywhere on YouTube. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.